Hi, in this lesson, we are going to be discussing the respiratory system. You should be able to know at the end of this lesson body surfaces that take part in respiration and the mechanism of gaseous exchange in fish, toad, mammals, and in plants. Basically, respiration in higher organisms. We'll also be dealing with some questions, taking some advisory, and at the end of the day, you'll be given some quiz. We hope that by the end of this lesson, you should be able to have a full knowledge of respiratory system. Let's write on. So what is respiratory system? Respiratory system involves all processes that take place to ensure the release of energy from food substances. We've spoken about cellular respiration, which is the core of respiration. However, before cells can actually respire in higher organisms, there has to be what is known as gaseous exchange, meaning that the organism, which is the plant or the animal, has to receive oxygen from the environment, because plants and animals can't afford to use all their cells to receive oxygen. There are specialized organs that perform this function. And that is what we are going to be discussing in this lesson. Now we're going to be talking about body surface that are involved in respiration, that is, in receiving or giving off air, basically. And we're talking about the cutaneous surfaces of some animals, talking about the gills, and we're talking about the lungs. For insects, there's an organ which is known as the trachea, the tracheal system, that also receives oxygen and gives out carbon dioxide into the environment. So what is the cutaneous system, the cutaneous surface? Cutaneous surface are the surfaces of some aquatic animals and even amphibian animals. These are surfaces that are lined with mucus, these are skin surfaces that are lined with mucus that allows oxygen to diffuse into the body of these animals. Now let's talk about the gills. Gills belong to vertebrate aquatic animals. Vertebrate animals that live in water. A classic example is the fish. These gills are richly supplied with blood, and that blood helps to moisten the surface so that gaseous exchange can occur. And finally, we're going to talk about the lungs. The lungs are present in land vertebrate animals. Those are vertebrate animals that live on land. Every vertebrate animal that lives on land has their lungs, or a pair of lungs. And these lungs, like one attribute of respiratory organs is that, or organs that receive oxygen or that participate in gaseous exchange, is that they must have a good supply of blood vessels or blood, because this blood is what they use to transport the oxygen to where it can be pumped into the whole body. So you can see that when we mention the cutaneous surface, it is wet or moist. The gills are moist. The lungs are also moist. And they are all supplied with blood vessels. They have a rich supply of blood to enable them to transport the oxygen to the heart, where it will be pumped to the body. Now we are going to talk about mechanism of gaseous exchange in fish, toad, mammals, and plants. First, let's treat the fish. The fish, as we know, is an aquatic animal, vertebrate aquatic animal, and like we discussed earlier, it makes use of the gills for gaseous exchange. This gift, like we said, is richly supplied with blood to enable it to transport this oxygen to the heart and transport carbon dioxide out into the water body. Now, how does fish take in oxygen? Fish, as an aquatic animal, takes a lot of water or drinks water. And while it does that, it closes the operculum, that is the covering of the gills, so that this water can come in and interact or exchange with the gills. The oxygen diffuses through the water into the gills, and that is how the gaseous exchange takes place. After this has been done, the fish closes its mouth and opens the operculum or the gill covering, which allows the deoxygenated water to come out. Now, this deoxygenated water will also contain carbon dioxide. That is how gaseous exchange is done in the fish. And let's move to the toad. The toad has three methods of gaseous exchange. First, in the baby toad or the tadpole, as an aquatic animal, the tadpole is an aquatic animal, it makes use of the gills. However, unlike the fish, the gills are open, they are not covered. So as the tadpole swims in water, it meets freely with water particles and oxygen is diffused into it, and the gaseous exchange takes place. Carbon dioxide comes out almost simultaneously. But as the toad grows from a tadpole to being a full-grown toad, it uses two major methods of gaseous exchange. The first is the cutaneous or the skin respiration, and the second is the lungs. While in water, with the wet skin or moist skin that it has, it is able to get oxygen diffused into it from water, and this oxygen can mix with the blood vessels that are lining this skin, this moist skin. Oxygen is diffused into the blood and is transported to the heart for it to be moved to all the parts of the body. And finally, the toad has the organ, the lungs. The lungs function almost like the lung of a higher animal or a mammal will function. And when the toad wants to use its lungs to breathe, what it does is that it takes in air through its nostrils. And after it does that, the air moves down to the lungs where gaseous exchange takes place. That's where carbon dioxide is released and oxygen is received. And from there, the oxygenated blood moves to the heart for transportation to other parts of the body. We are also going to talk about respiration in mammals. Mammals have only one organ of respiration, and that is the lung. And there are a pair of lungs. Every mammal has a pair of lungs, and these lungs are very thick and richly supplied with blood. We have two lungs, as I stated earlier, which are connected by a bronchi, as a pair of bronchi. The bronchi is also connected to the nasal cavity or to the nose through what is known as a trachea. Now, other organs involved in breathing in mammals include the diaphragm, which is more like a muscle that enables the lungs to constrict or to relax, that is, to squeeze or open. Then we also have the pharynx and the epiglottis, which covers the throat when breathing is about to take place. So let us move to gaseous exchange in mammals. Air is taken in through the nose, passes through the larynx to the pharynx with the epiglottis closed so that air doesn't rush into the other part connected to the pharynx, which is the digestive system or the esophagus, enters into the trachea and goes down into the lungs. Now in the lungs, there are some small air sacs known as alveoli. These alveoli are where gaseous exchange takes place. The lung is more like a bag of sponge with all these alveoli inside of it that enables it to absorb oxygen from air and to also release carbon dioxide into the air. Something also takes place when we breathe in. The lungs expand, definitely due to taking in air, and the muscles of the diaphragm also contracts. That is, it becomes tightened. And when we breathe out, the muscles of the diaphragm relaxes. The intercostal muscle, the muscles surrounding the lungs, also relaxes and forces the air out through the nose. Like I said earlier, gaseous exchange takes place in the alveoli of the lungs. Now, this alveoli of the lung is the part that is richly supplied with blood. It is from the alveoli of the lungs that the right ventricle receives this blood and transports it to the heart for transport. And with that, we move to respiration in plants. Respiration in plants is much simpler. It takes place on the surface of the leaves through an organ known as stomata, or singular, which is the plural for stoma. Stoma is composed of several cells, like the guard cells, the lenticels, and so on. And what these do is they form a kind of muscle-like system that gauges how air comes in or goes out of the plant. Now, the stomata are located more underneath the leaf, and under the leaf, that rough side under the leaf, is where most of the stomata are located, while we have very few over the leaf, that's on top of the leaves. When the plant wants to take in oxygen, the guard cells allow the stomata to open up and let oxygen come in. Now, this guard cell and the lenticel, this guard cell allows the air to come in, and the air reacts with what is known as the lenticel, which allows the air to diffuse, or oxygen to diffuse into the plant. And from the lenticel, the oxygen is transported to other parts of the plant through the cell sap. And that is all for respiratory system. Let us deal with some past WAEC questions. Now let us treat some past questions as regards this topic. This one states, the following are structures used for respiration in some organisms except A. Alveoli and lungs, B. Spiracle and trachea, C. Stomata and lenticels, and D. Chloroplast and plastid. The answer is D. Chloroplast and plastids. Take note of the word except. The rest are respiratory organs apart from chloroplast and plastid, which are involved in photosynthesis. Now the next one. And this question states, how much nitrogen is expelled from humans after gaseous exchange? A. 50%, B. 60%, C. 78%, and D. 90%. The answer is 78%. The composition the percentage of nitrogen in air does not change because nitrogen does not participate in gaseous exchange. Now let's treat the next question. It states, the products of respiration in higher plants are A. Carbon dioxide, energy, and starch, B. Carbon dioxide, energy, and water, C. Carbon dioxide, starch, and water, and D. Carbon dioxide, water, and starch. The answer is B. carbon dioxide, energy, and water. The major product is energy. The waste products are carbon dioxide and water. Next. Now this question states, which of the following is likely to increase in concentration immediately after a vigorous exercise in a person? A. Lactic acid. B. Fatty acid. C. Acetic acid. And D. Amino acid. And the answer is A. Lactic acid. I told you earlier that lactic acid accumulates in humans after a vigorous exercise due to the shortage of oxygen. Now, the last question states, the only vein that carries pure oxygenated blood is A. Renal vein, B. Pulmonary vein, C. Hepatic vein, and D. Sciatic vein. And the answer is B. Pulmonary vein. And the reason is simple. I told you that pulmonary vein carries oxygenated blood from the lungs to the heart, and it is the only vein that carries oxygenated blood. And with that, we've come to the end of this lesson on respiratory system.